Hello class. So today's lesson is going to be the picture wall. The main purpose of it is to learn a little bit more about different ways of making selections inside of Photoshop. To begin, we're going to open up the pictures that we took from our last lesson. To do that, we're going to go to File and Open. Go to wherever they're stored on your computer, and there's plenty of ways to collect them. You can either click them individually and open them, go back and do open again, or you can click and drag across them, or in my case, since they're a little bit mixed up, you can click and drag across the ones that are grouped together, then hold down Control and just click any of the extra ones that are still needing to be in the selection. Once you got them all selected, they should be highlighted in blue, and the ones that are not should not be highlighted at all. You can just go down here and click Open. After you do that, they should each pop up in their own tabs, and then you got all your pictures ready to go. The next thing we're going to do is start our actual picture wall file. To do that, go up to File and New. This one we're going to be doing as a landscaped 11 by 8.5. So we want our width to be in 11 inches, our height to be 8.5, and it's going to be in landscape. We want a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. You can leave the color mode and background content as it is, and then click Create. And then you should have another tab open up that looks like this, just a blank white screen. The other purpose for this lesson is to figure out how to go into Google Images and be able to collect images that are free to use and modify without any kind of commercial licensing. So to do that, we're going to open up Google. Up here we're going to type in picture frame, singular. Hit enter. And we're going to go over to images. And it automatically has a bunch of picture frames that you could use since this is a school project. But we want to make sure that they are free to use. So to do that, we're going to click on Tools. And there's a few different tools that we're probably going to end up using. Size is going to be one of them. We're probably going to just want a large size. That way we don't end up getting teeny tiny picture frames to go along with our larger sized pictures. So we're going to click large. We're not really going to mess with color, although we could pick a color and that would find all the picture frames that are close to that color. There's type. Not really going to mess with that one. Time is how long ago it was uploaded to the web. And more tools, you can show different sizes, but we're not really going to mess with that one either. And then clear, you can just clear whatever selections you have. But the main one we're going to be using is usage rights. Now there's a few different selections on this one. It starts at default of not filtered by license, which means it might be okay to reuse them, it might not. You have no good way of knowing. There's labeled for reuse with modification. That means that you can download it, use it, modify it however you want, and you don't have to have an actual commercial license to use it. Now you got to be careful because some of these you do have to give credit to whoever created them, so make sure whichever one you end up using is okay to use with or without their consent to be able to use it. We're not going to worry about that too much today, simply because this is a school project and you don't need any kind of permissions to do that. Labeled for reuse, same thing as the reuse with modification, but as you've probably guessed, you're not allowed to change it. You have to use it as is. You cannot make any modifications to it. Labeled for non-commercial reuse with modification, you're able to use it as much as you want. You're able to modify it however you want. You're just not allowed to sell it. And then labeled for non-commercial reuse, you cannot modify it, you cannot sell it, but you can use it for personal projects. So we're going to go up to labeled for reuse with modification. And that brings up a nice little selection of picture frames that we're able to use. The first one we're going to use is just this top left one. It's just a plain frame, no extra like lines to it like some of these other ones are. It's just a regular boxed frame. If this isn't your first one, just find one similar to it to where it doesn't have any extra zigzags to it or anything like that. We just want a plain box frame. To get the best quality of the image, you can click it. It's going to open up like this. We're going to go to right click and we're going to do Save Image As. And then save it wherever you're going to be able to easily find it. And we're going to open up Photoshop, go to File, Open, go to wherever it's stored at, and click Open. Now we've got a nice, neat picture frame that we're able to use. So to get this into the tab for our actual project, we're going to click the Move tool. We're going to select the entire image by clicking Control A. That selects the entire image. And using the Move tool, we're going to click and drag, and don't release the mouse button. And then hover over the tab where our project is, and then come down onto the project. And once your mouse looks like this, and you're on top of the white screen, then you can let go of your mouse button. Now we've got a picture frame over here. Let's go ahead and go to its layer. I should say layer 1 right now. Double click that. We're going to rename it frame 1. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is pick one of our pictures to go inside of it. And I'm going to use this bridge one. Again, Move tool, Control A. Also, make sure up here where it says Show Transform Controls that you got a little check mark there. That way you can see this bounding box that goes around it. And again, we're just going to click and drag onto our picture and let go. Now you can see here we've got a little bit of a problem in that our picture is on top of our frame and we need it the other way around. So we're going to go over here and grab the frame 1 and drag it up above the picture layer. Let's go ahead and rename our picture layer while we're at it. We'll rename it as Picture 1. Okay. There we go. So now we got our picture. Okay, so now that we got both the picture and the picture frame in our project, we're going to have to decide how we want everything rotated. The image that I took in a portrait mode, and the picture frame that I have selected is currently kind of a landscape. I think what I'd like to do is switch it to where the picture frame is in portrait, although I could leave it as landscape and just crop the image however I'm wanting it. But to be able to change the picture frame to be portrait mode instead, we make sure that we got our Move tool selected, and we got the check mark in the Show Transform Controls. That way we got this nice little bounding box here. And if you see, whenever I'm hovering over the bounding box, if I'm on the top or the bottom line, it's got the up and down arrows. If I'm on the sides, it's got the side to side arrow. If I'm on the corner, it's got a diagonal arrow to arrow. But if I hover kind of outside the corner, it's got that curved arrow. And that's what's going to allow us to rotate the image. So you can just click and drag and it'll freeform rotate however you want. And you can get pretty close to straight up and down with that. But I'm wanting it to be a little bit more exacting. So if while you're holding down the mouse button, you hold down Shift and then rotate it, it rotates it by degrees of 15. So I can rotate it until it's -90 in this case, or I can go the other direction and rotate it until it's at 90 degrees, straight up and down. Doesn't really matter which way you like it. There's a little bit of a lighting to the frame, so I'm probably going to do at 90 degrees. And then make sure to let go of the mouse button and then the shift key, otherwise you lose the exact measurements. Then once you got the picture frame rotated the way that you're wanting, you're going to go up to the top here and click the checkbox. There you go. So now we've got them both in the positioning that we're wanting. So we're going to go to picture, and we're going to get the image lined up inside the picture frame however we're wanting it. So you can kind of drag the picture itself around until you got that, and then you can resize it a little bit if you like. Again, I'm going to click the corner this time, and you can do a free move like this. It'll go. It'll keep its dimensions pretty well. If you were to hold down Shift, you can get more of a free-flowing effect. That may be reversed on some versions of Photoshop, so if you get a free form without holding Shift, then you switch it around and hold down Shift to get the exact measurements. In this case, I'm going to go to about here. Okay. And it's okay to have some of the image outside of the picture frame. We're going to use our selection tool to be able to get rid of some of that. Once you got the picture put into the frame where you're wanting it, and you got it sized to the way you want it, just click the checkbox. That sets it where it's at. And since this is a pretty simple one, we're going to click the rectangular marquee tool. It's the second icon down. If it doesn't have the rectangular tool there, just long hold on it. It'll open up some extra options, and just click the rectangular marquee tool from there. Alright. And since the image is behind the frame, we can cheat a little bit and just make our selection anywhere where the picture frame will be hiding the rest of the image. There you go. And now everything on the picture layer, since the picture layer is the one that's highlighted, is selected inside of this. But what we're wanting to do is get rid of everything outside of that area. So we're going to go up here to select, and we're going to inverse our selection. So now you can see there's this dashed mark on the outside of the image and on the inside. So anywhere where the mouse looks like the white mouse with the rectangle at the bottom right, that's inside of our selection. If it's on the inside or outside of the selection, it's going to look like that little cross. So we got everything outside of it selected. All you have to do now is on your keyboard select or click the delete button. And we're going to go up to select and deselect all of the rest of our selection. Alright, so that's our first picture frame. We're going to do a couple of things to the layers just to kind of clean it up a bit. So if you have one of them highlighted, hold down Shift and click the other layer. You're going to right click on one of them. First thing we're going to do is link the layers. The reason we do that is if we click the move tool now, you can click and drag it and it moves both layers at the same time. They stay exactly together. The other thing I'm probably going to do is shrink this one up a little bit. So if you hold down one of the corners, drag it in, makes it a little bit smaller. That way we have room for our other images. Go ahead and click the check mark. There we go. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do to the layers is make sure they're both selected. Right click. And we're going to click Group from Layers. And we're going to call this one Canvas 1. We don't want to color to it. Leave the mode as it is, leave the opacity as it is, and just click OK. You can see over here that that grouped them together into this folder. You can click the caret over here to the left and drop it down and be able to select your layers again. And click it again to kind of bring it back again. Alright, so we're going to call that good for our first image, and we can get started on our second one. So for our second picture, I'm going to go back into Google, exit out of that one, and this time around I want a picture frame that is a little less straight around the edges. Want one that has a bit of curves to it. This one looks pretty good. It's got some nice stuff around the edges. So we're going to try a different way of getting the image over to our project. This one, you can see that it has a white background to it. We'll go back over to the other one real quick and check it. So yeah, if you look at this one, it's got this checker mark pattern on it, which means that that has a transparency to it. So if we were to try this with that, it may or may not work. But since this one has the white background, we're going to right click it, go to copy image, go back over to our project, go up to edit, and paste. And that just automatically brought it in. I'm going to turn off the background layer real quick by clicking the eyeball next to background. And you can see here, we got the checker mark pattern over here, which means that it's transparent. But this one has the white around it, so that means it's got the frame plus the extra white space. So the first thing we're going to have to do is get rid of all that white spacing. To make it easier, we're going to use the magnifying tool, or the zoom tool. A couple different ways of using that one. You can either click and drag down and to the right to zoom in, or to zoom back out, click and drag up and to the left. That'll zoom out, so you can kind of just go back and forth on that. Or, if you have the plus sign on it, you can just click and it'll zoom in a little bit. Or if you hold down the Alt button, it gets a minus sign. You can click to zoom out. So what we're wanting to do is get it to where you can still see the entire thing, all the white background's there, all the frame is there, but we want it just a little bit bigger so we can more easily manipulate it. So we're going to go ahead and click the move tool again. Make sure you can see the bounding box. And this time around, instead of using one of the marquee tools, we're actually going to go into select, and we're going to use the color range selection. So you can see here, most of it is black with a little bit of white in the middle. We're going to change the fuzziness down to 0 because we only want the white areas. So we got an eyedropper tool if we're hovering over it. We're going to go ahead and click in one of the white areas. It's actually not selecting quite everything. That means that we've got some shades of gray in here on the white areas. So what we're going to do instead, see if we can change it to highlight. Let's see what that does. Nope, now we're getting too much in the actual frame itself. So let's go back to sampled colors, sample the white. We may have to make a few changes. We'll switch the selection preview into grayscale, that way we can actually see what we're selecting. Yeah, that way we can up the fuzziness a little bit. There we go. Now you can see it a little bit more closely matches it. Turn that back off. And go ahead and go to OK. So now you can see it pretty well caught most of the white on the outside edges. And we got all of it on the inside pretty well. So once we've got our selection made, go ahead and hit the delete key. And select, deselect. And if we click down here in the gray area where there's no layers, it'll deselect that layer and we can get a better look at it. That looks pretty good. It got rid of most of the white around the edges, and it looks like we just got the background there. So I think we're good to use this one. Let's go and reselect our picture frame. And again, we're going to double click the layer. We're going to call this one frame 2. Then we need to get a picture to go inside of it. Let's start by going back, zooming back out. Again, you could zoom out this way, but what I'm going to suggest doing this time around is using one of these three up here. Clicking 100% kind of zooms in a little bit on what you're focusing on for your layer. Or if you do fill screen, it gets it to where the up and down fill the screen, the full screen properly. Or you can click fit screen to where you see your entire canvas in your screen. I would definitely suggest going with the fit screen. Right, and then we're going to click the move tool, and we're going to pick a picture to go into that. This one I'm going to use my waterfall. So again, Control A selects the entire layer. Click and drag, bring it down, and let go of the mouse key. Okay, we're going to rename this one to Picture 2. And move the frame on top of it. Feel free to rotate the image or the picture frame as you like. This particular time, they're both in the same orientation, so I'm not going to worry about that. But I am going to change the size of the image. Now, if it fits in there without having to do any other modifications, that's fine. You're done with that one. Otherwise, again, go through like we did on step 1, make your selection, inverse the selection, and then delete everything outside of it. Just make sure that you're on the picture layer, because if you're on the frame layer and you have a selection, it's going to delete the frame. If you're on the canvas 1, it's going to delete from the canvas 1. So just be very careful with which layer you're on. In this instance, I don't need to make any selections and deleting, so I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to link the layers together, move it up here to the top, right click. Actually, this time around, I got both of them selected. You can actually turn it into a group by clicking the new group, and it'll do it that way, and you can rename it to Canvas 2. I'm actually going to go ahead and undo that. You go ahead and leave yours as it is. But another way to do it is just have both of them selected, and then just click, hold down Control and click G, and that will also group them together. Don't care which method you use, just name this one Canvas 2. And enter. Alright, that's all for image 2. Let's go on to our third one. So for our third image, I've actually got one selected for you already. So if you go into Canvas and go to Module 3, you're going to see one called Mirror Frame Vector File. Just go ahead and select that one, and then download it. And to get to it easily, you can click that caret and go to Show in Folder. We're going to right click it and open with Photoshop. And from here it'll work the same. Make sure you got the movement tool selected, Control A, and then click and drag it into our current project. It's going to be a bit big, so we're going to resize that down a little bit. There we go. Now this one's going to be a bit tricky because you can see here we don't have any background at all. It's just the vector file of the frame itself, which means we can't really cheat like we were on all the rest of it. So go ahead and click the check mark. We're going to select the image that we want to go into it. Use my caterpillar for this one. So Control A, click, drag, and drop. Alright, so let's rename these real quick. Picture 3 and frame 3. Picture frame on top. Alright, so we're going to resize it and move it around till we've got roughly what we want in the frame inside of that circle. There we go. And once you got it adjusted how you like, I'm actually going to suggest turning the picture itself off for just a moment. I'm going to zoom in on it. Make sure we got plenty of room to work there. There we go. So what we're wanting to make a selection of is everything inside of this circle. So we're going to go into the marquee tool. We're going to select the elliptical marquee tool. There's a few different ways that you can make this one work. You can try to guesstimate about roughly where it's going to be at the height here and the side there, roughly here-ish. You can come over and drag it, and you can get kind of close. You can see that's pretty darn far off, though. Not going to use that one, so we're going to go select, deselect. The other option is get roughly where it needs to be. Click and drag, but hold down the shift key this time. And that's going to get you a perfect circle. The problem is it's still nowhere near where we want it to be. So select, deselect. So this time around we're going to go to roughly the middle of the image instead. We're going to click and hold. We're going to hold down shift, and we're going to hold down alt. That way it makes a perfect circle from the center. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but it's a lot closer this time around. We're going to go and let go of the mouse button and then let go of the keys on the keyboard. Alright. And we're going to go and turn our picture back on. And once again, we've got everything inside the circle selected, but what we're really wanting is everything outside of the circle selected. So go back into select and inverse. Make sure you've got picture 3 selected and click delete. So now we've just got the circle there. So we're going to select, deselect, and go to our move tool. We're going to get it as centered into this circle as we can. Then we're just going to make adjustments to get it to fit inside that circle a little bit better. There we go. And drag it out to where it fits properly. Once it gets in there pretty good, just click the check mark. Click into the gray area down here so that it deselects your layer. That looks pretty good, I think. Now the other thing you can do if you ever want to adjust it, since it's circular one, selection tool, picture, grab there, and kind of adjust it. I'm going to turn mine to where it's facing the other way. And just click the check mark. And that's it. Alright, so we're going to shift click both of the layers, link the layers, group the layers. This one's going to be canvas 3. And we can zoom back out to where we can see the whole thing. Use the move tool and drag it up there into the 3rd position. If you want to resize it at this point, you can, because they are linked together. Just remember to click the check mark once you're done. Alright, for our 4th image, go back into Chrome, go back into our picture frames. And this time around, I'm wanting one that's kind of like this. It's got the square or rectangular inside, and it's got a little bit of a white outline there. Basically, try to find a picture that looks as close to this as you can. This one, since it's got the white background, we're going to do copy image. Oops, wrong thing. Go back into our project, go to edit, and paste. Okay. And we're going to select our image to go inside of it. Control A, click and drag. All the usual stuff. This time we got picture 4, frame 4. Put that above the picture. I'm going to do a few different things this time around. I'm going to go ahead and click the eyeball on the picture, so we're just messing with the frame for now. Zoom in on it a bit. That might be a little too much. There we go. Alright, so this time we're going to use a couple different selection tools. For this inside area, I'm going to show you how to use the quick selection tool. You can use the quick selection tool or the magic wand tool. They're pretty much going to do the same thing. In fact, I'll show you both ways. The quick selection tool, you just kind of click in where you want it and kind of fiddle with it until it selects the whole white area that you're wanting selected. I'm going to select, deselect on that, and go to the magic wand tool, and we're just going to click this time, and it selects everything that is roughly the same color until it gets to an area where it's a dramatically different color. And that's how the magic wand tool works. We've also got the lasso tool. This one's a fun one. It's more of a free range selection tool. So if we wanted to select like this, we can kind of do an outline. I'm terrible at it, as you can see, because I'm selecting way too much stuff. But that's okay, because we can come up here to the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to show you how to deselect things with it. So right now, it just looks like the up and down cross, but if you hold down the Alt key, it adds that minus sign to it. So we can kind of line it up there and click and drag, and now that deselected everything that was outside of it. Or if we want to add to it, we can hold down the Shift key and it adds the plus sign to it. Now we can get it right about there. Drag it over. Now we've added that much of the selection to it. Now we've still got a little bit of white area up here, so let's go ahead and click and drag those ones. And don't forget to use the Shift key to do the add to selection, otherwise it makes an entirely new one. And the same thing out to this side. There we go. We're going to click delete and select, deselect. Well, I apparently didn't actually get rid of the white in the middle. I forgot to hit the delete button. So we're going to go back to the magic wand tool, click it, delete it, and select, deselect. Alright. For the two sides here, we're going to try using the polygon lasso tool. So we're going to start up here in this corner and just click and release and go to the next spot where you've got a straight line. You're able to click and release, and it made a new line. Next line, click and release, click release, click release. And another thing you can use on this is if you hold down the Shift key, it only allows you to do a straight horizontal, a 45-degree, or a straight vertical line. So that can help you get a little bit more precise with these. Down to the bottom here, holding down Shift, it'll give you a straight up and down line. And click. We can go a little over on this one because I'm going to go back up now instead of going over. Make a couple dots out here, and we're going to go back to where our original point was. Once you get it hovered roughly over where your original point was, you'll see that a little circle has appeared on the icon on the bottom right of it. That means it's going to connect your lines together now. So if you click there, we now have our selection made. All right, so let's go ahead and delete that one and select, deselect. Another one of these is the magnetic lasso tool. It's a really fun one because it does a lot of the work for you. Similar to the polygon lasso tool, you're just going to click and release to get your first dot. And then you're just going to move the cursor without holding anything down along the line here. You can see I can actually even go a little bit away from it and it'll still grab onto the area that I want selected. Basically like it's magnetically being pulled to it. Just drag it down as carefully as you can. Until you get to the bottom. And we're going to go back up to the top, hover over it, and you got that circle again. So whenever we click, it makes the selection for us. delete, select, deselect. That's the magnetic tool. Alright, so got that one, got that one, got that one. Got all of these. We've used these. The only ones we didn't use is the single row marquee tool and the single column marquee tool. That literally just makes a oops, wrong one. That one literally just makes a straight line up or down depending on if you click row or column. But we're not really wanting that, so we're going to select deselect. So for this last one on the bottom, you can use whichever selection tool you want. I'm going to go ahead and use the magic wand again. And delete. And select, deselect. Alright, so now we've got all of the white areas taken out and we're left with just the picture frame. So from here, let's see, which ones have I used so far? Zoom out so I can see which I've done. Get to screen. So I've already done the bridge, I've already done the caterpillar, I've done the waterfall, so I've got the flower next. Oh wait, I think we already have that open. Ignore that last part. So we're going to turn the picture back on. Go to the move tool. Make sure you got the picture selected. Okay. And again, we can cheat a little bit on this one because we've got the nice big bordered picture frame. So get it centered where you want it. Doesn't matter if you've got the extra overlap. Once it's the way you like it, click the check mark. We're going to go into the rectangular marquee tool. Make our selection. Make sure you have picture 4 selected. Go to select, inverse, click delete, then deselect your selection. And as usual, we're going to combine them together, link the layers, move it to where we want it to go, group them together. This one's going to be Canvas 4. And that's the end of picture 4. So your assignment from here is I want 1 to 2 more picture frames done. I don't care which picture frames you use. I don't care which selection tools you use. Just make them look similar to the 4 that you've already done and get it turned in. Remember, I'm wanting them saved as Photoshop. And we're going to go ahead and call this one Picture Wall. And once you get that finished, get it turned in, and I'll get it graded for you. Oh, and don't forget to turn on your background layer again once you're completely done. Resave it. Alright, that's all, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or post on Canvas, however you need to. And we will see you guys for the next lesson. Thank you. Bye.